Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really powerful way to think about growth, all based on the manuscript When You Know Better, You Do Better by Antonio Boyd. This is all about turning what you know into what you actually do, and turning life's biggest challenges into your greatest strengths.
All right, let's just get right to it. Have you ever had that feeling like you're just winging it? Come on, be honest. We've all been there, right? Those moments where it feels like you're just making it up as you go, hoping you'll find some solid ground.
Well, that's exactly where this story begins. Picture this. You've just hit a massive career milestone, graduating from warrant officer school. You've got the credentials, the handshakes, the whole 9 yards. But then, an unexpected feeling hits, a total crisis of purpose. The path you thought was laid out in front of you, it just vanished.
So, what do you do in that what now moment? You've got to find a blueprint. And for the author, the answer came from 3 simple words he learned in the military, a framework that became a philosophy for living with intention. Be, know, and do.
Okay, first up is be. This is the foundation, the absolute core of who you are. We're talking about your character, your values, who you are when nobody's watching. You know, you've probably worked for someone whose actions just didn't match their words, right? That feeling of distrust? That happens when being is ignored. Real leadership, it starts right here. Next, we have know. And look, this is not about just collecting facts or hoarding information. We live in a world that is drowning in data, but absolutely starving for wisdom. To really know something is to develop insight. It's about being curious enough to keep asking questions and humble enough to admit you don't have all the answers.
And finally, there's do. This is where the rubber meets the road, you know? Because all the amazing character from be and all the deep wisdom from know, well, they don't mean a thing without action. Doing is the bridge that takes your potential and turns it into your actual legacy.
But we all know it's not that simple, do we? We all run into these things called growth gaps. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that space between saying, yeah, I know I should do that, and then actually doing it. It's the, oh, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm just afraid I'll mess it up. The secret isn't avoiding the gaps, it's being willing to build a bridge across them.
So, if be, know, do is our blueprint for the journey, what happens when life throws you a massive, unexpected curveball and the path you were on completely disappears? Well, that's when you need a playbook for the detours.
So how do these two ideas fit together? Think of it like this. Be, know, do is your GPS. It sets your destination, your true north. But ADAPT, that's your tactical playbook. It's what you pull out to navigate the roadblocks, the storms, the things you never saw coming. It's your resilience toolkit.
And here it is, the ADAPT framework. It all starts with accepting your situation for what it is. No sugarcoating. Then, and this is a tough one, you discipline the disappointment. You feel it, but you don't let it drive. Next, you align your actions with your core values, your B. Then you practice the small, consistent behaviors that create wins. And finally, the last step of growth. You teach what you've learned to others.
Now, all this theory is great, but let's see how these frameworks actually hold up under some extreme pressure. This is where the story gets really, really raw and vulnerable.
The first major test began with a terrible decision, a DUI. Sitting in a holding cell, there was nowhere to hide from the hard reality of the situation. This is the first step of ADAPT in its most brutal form. Accept. Not as an excuse, but as a starting line. It is what it is. That's where the real work begins.
But the consequences of that mistake didn't just stay in the past. Nope, they followed him all the way to Fort Rucker, Alabama. He was standing in formation, surrounded by his peers, the very people whose respect he'd worked so hard to earn. His past had come back to collect, and it was charging interest.
And then, in one single, public moment, they took his rank. It wasn't done in private. It was a spectacle, a lesson for him, and a warning to everyone else. Everything he thought he had built just crumbled.
But what he did next, that's what truly matters. He could have let that public humiliation define him, break him. Instead, he made a choice to discipline the disappointment, to feel the sting, to acknowledge the pain, but to refuse to give it control over his future. And that's the heart of it, right there. If you don't discipline your disappointment, believe me, it will discipline you.
After navigating his own personal failures, the focus started to shift. It moved away from just leading himself to leading others. Because you start to realize that true leadership isn't about the title on your uniform or your business card. It's about your testimony. It's about what your life teaches other people.
And that kind of teaching, it doesn't always happen on a big stage. Sometimes it's in the quiet moments. One day, at an arcade, his son saw that the side panel on a claw machine was loose. It would have been so easy to reach in and grab a jackpot of tickets. But right there, with basically no one watching, the lesson was clear. Son, this is a moment of integrity. They told the staff about it and walked away with something way more valuable than paper tickets.
And that little story gets to the very heart of influence, which John C. Maxwell captured perfectly here. Before anyone is going to say yes to your big idea or your vision for the future, they have to first say yes to you. People follow the character of the person before they ever commit to the cause. Trust is absolutely everything.
So what's the end game in all of this? It's not about gathering a huge crowd of followers who just do what you say. The real goal is multiplication. It's to develop other leaders. The civil rights icon Ella Baker said it best. Strong people don't need strong leaders. The true job of a leader is to build people up so that they can lead themselves.
And that leaves us with one last powerful question to think about. Whether you realize it or not, whether you have a title or not, someone is watching you. Your response to a crisis becomes their playbook for a comeback. Your life is someone else's blueprint. So the real question isn't if you're a leader, but how you're leading. How will you walk it?